Welcome back to Build in Norfolk, where we share the stories of the builders, thinkers, and creators shaping Nebraska's entrepreneurial landscape. I'm your host, Emma Bennett, and today's guest is someone you might recognize, well, at least her voice. She's a storyteller, a connector, and the host of Growing Small Town Nebraska, a podcast that shines a light on the people and possibilities in rural Nebraska communities. I'm so excited to welcome Sheila Jenkinson to the show. We're talking about her journey from professional radio to rural podcasting, how she found a new creative freedom through intersect co-working, and what she's learned about amplifying the voices of small town changemakers. Welcome, Sheila.
Well, that's a lot. Thank you, Emma.
You're welcome. You want to just kind of give us a quick intro and talk about maybe just like an overview of what your career has looked like and what you're doing now?
Okay. So starting with radio or starting with what I'm doing? Okay. Yeah. So 20 years radio. I got my first on-air radio job with Clear 101 in Columbus back in 1996, I think.
There we go.
Yeah. And so it might have been 98. It was 98. I was there for about 2 years, morning show, midday. They hired me as a part-time news director.
Nice.
And the first day I went on the air with them, they decided I'd make good morning show. And so I then went into a full-time radio career. From there, I was about 2 years into that, and I got a call from Dave Amick, who was with US 92, and I met with Dave and Mike with Flood Communications, and then I started on the air the first day that US 92 went on the air here in Norfolk.
Wow.
I did not know the radio format. They wouldn't tell me. And so I just said, well, these are the ones I won't be on, but otherwise. And so I had a great morning show, news director career there. And then I dropped down to part-time, raising the family. And I actually quit after our daughter was born. And then a couple years later, they called and said, hey, come play radio. And so I did part-time for years and years on that.
Nice.
Yeah. And then the podcasting, Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast, it was going to be a little hobby. And it was born out of the fact that there was so much revitalization going on throughout the state, especially here.
Yes.
It was a good example, and in Stanton and around the areas. And so just that idea of sharing those positive stories of growth and rebuilding, and that's how that got started. It was going to be twice a month, and that's how it started. But as you know, that's not what it's at anymore.
We love an evolution. I think, it's something I don't want to say I take for granted, but I almost do, is like how lucky we are here in Norfolk to have the revitalization projects and efforts we've had. But then there's those little pockets and those little towns that my family travels throughout the state occasionally, and you find one and you're like, oh, wow, Burwell has this, or Ogallala has that, but I don't know about the 10 others. I think I follow so many more cute little boutiques and restaurants after seeing what you guys post. I'm like, well, I need to go to Nebraska City like yesterday because there's so many cute things. So I appreciate it. But I think it's such a cool project and such a great way to utilize talents you have to amplify those awesome ventures. So you kind of talked about what inspired the podcast to start. Why did you feel called to highlight those rural stories?
Again, just kind of seeing the examples and wanting the small towns to thrive rather than just survive. It's a thrive or die situation for a lot of them right now. And so there was that. And I just love positive stories. I always have. I'm a cheerleader at heart. Never really was one, but I'm a cheerleader at heart. Yeah. And so I just enjoy talking about the good things that there are. And there are so many fantastic things in Nebraska to highlight, whether it's the small village of 250 people to Grand Island and a larger community that still has that small town feel, right? And the things that are going on there. And Norfolk, I grew up around here. I grew up in Plainview. And I always say this is not your mama's downtown, because this is not, and I say that to my kids because my downtown looks different than what they see.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came back in 2019, so right as everything was opening, and 411, I think we literally went there the day they opened, and it's so fun to see. It was District and 411 were the only two restaurants, and the coffee shop. Boom. Yeah, it was. And like the downtown coffee was the only thing down here.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I have 3 places to get coffee.
Yeah.
We have the space. We have multiple restaurants. Like, my wallet doesn't love it, but I love it. And I will always support local.
You're just helping the economy. You got to.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing.
And I can't tell you, I think it trains you. Like I said, we're really lucky. I won't go to chain restaurants. Like, when we travel, even, I'm like, I want to find something local. Even if it's a local chain, great. But, like, I don't want to go to a chain restaurant as much anymore because I want the businesses in our downtown to survive.
Right.
So I do that when we travel too. So
yeah, our rule, and the kids will say that to their friends too. Like, no, our rule was when we were traveling, we're not eating somewhere where we could eat at back home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. We do the same thing. Outside of the, like, running through the airport, I need Subway.
Well, that's necessity. That's a whole different thing. It has to happen once in a while.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the differences, you talked about from being on air to then radio and now podcasting. It's all a form of digital media, but, like, what were some of the biggest things you learned that were different from even just radio to podcasting, and, like, how that background helped you, and then what else you had to learn as you got into podcasts?
Yeah, podcasting's a whole different beast. And so, being in radio for so long, that in itself evolved. Okay. When I graduated from college, I was working with reels and cartridges and cassettes and CDs had just come out, and learning to play those tracks. I would cue up a cassette tape with my finger. I mean, that's how old I am. And so that evolved as I went, and staying in there even part-time, I think, helped me because then it was computers. And I voice tracked my shift for years and years. I was not there, even though it sounded like I was there. And so that helped. I think I wasn't as afraid. A lot of podcasters don't have that background.
Oh, yeah.
And so absolutely everything is new to them. Now, this is new equipment, but if you've mastered one kind of equipment, you can usually master another. And I think there's that. As far as talking, it's what I do. It's what I've done forever and ever. So that is not an issue for me at all. And I think having the radio gives me the experience and the confidence to be able to do interviews very easily. But you're going to find, because this is kind of new for you, right, Emma?
100%. We don't have to talk about numbers. No, this is like the 3rd interview I've done. So it's completely different. My friends joke that, like, thank God you're in marketing or some sort of community management, because I love to talk. So you would naturally think it just comes natural, but it is. It's a learning curve.
It is.
As you said, like, we were talking about the tools and stuff. I had to double check that we were recording, because that's, like, my biggest fears. We'll get through
this. And it happens, just so you know.
I'm like,
a lot of grace in Nebraska, so it'll be okay if that happens. Yes. You just re-record and pretend that didn't happen. But
it's a practice run. Yeah. It's fine.
And same with you. Like, you'll find your niche and how this goes, and you might be surprised at how it evolves and in what ways. So. And
I think we even have from, like, season 1-ish to season 2, like, we had the first few episodes and now we have this next set. And in that time, very similar to you guys, like, you went from 2 episodes a month to where you are now. We really found our identity in what Built in Norfolk is, and expanded our programming outside of the podcast studio into what we're doing in the community and with our founders too. So it does evolve. It does change.
Yeah. And it's just me on the podcast. I am the sole host, but it did go from the 2 episodes a month. So now there's 7 episodes a month. Sometimes there's 8 or 9. It just depends on if bonus things come my way and if I have the time. Like, I will run this as a bonus episode for people to be able to hear this episode and promote you as well. And a lot of collaborations. I love to do collaborations. So it was an easy yes when you asked.
Good. It does speak to, though, like, we've talked in other episodes about ecosystems and building the community around, like, our focal point, but not everyone has the same strengths, and that's what makes communities great. But it's amplifying those messages and those partnerships. I think it's such an undervalued piece of building any business, building any ventures, is how you utilize those partnerships that you have.
Yeah, and you don't know what those connections are going to look like down the road or what that will lead into, and that's true for everyone.
Oh, for sure. It is one of those things you can't say yes to everything, but
right.
you do have to.
I say a lot of no's now, actually.
Oh, teach me how.
Well, once your schedule is completely full, you will learn very quickly.
Luckily, we still have some flexibility in that schedule, but it is one of those things. You just have those conversations and you explore those opportunities, which is important. Is there anything, like as you were at the radio, you were producing that kind of content to now being able to control the content you produce? Is that exciting for you? Is that different? Did you have that freedom in the radio space, or was that?
No, not a lot of freedom in the radio space, and not a lot of talking. Okay, because some in the morning show, but I was a co-host, and yes, there was more talking during the morning show part. But midday, when you're introducing songs, you had like 8-10 seconds, not as much personal time to talk, So I think my favorite one was one time I was recording and I was live actually, and a spider literally dropped down in front of me, and I had this moment, and that's what people remember probably the most. They like your real when your realness. Things like a spider drops down, and I said, "Holy cow, that's a huge spider!" And at least I said cow.
There you go.
But so that there's little funny things along the way, but we're all human and we all have those things that happen.
I think
and
people
that's what
crave
connects
that.
you.
Yeah. People want that human connection. They want to hear or see and interact with real people, not just, I love AI, I love technology, but there is nothing that replaces that human connection.
Right.
So that's awesome. Speaking of connections, how did you discover Intersect? How did you get here? How was that process for you?
Well, Intersect's been amazing because you came on board right away. So when recording locally, this is the go-to spot still. And it's 2.5 years later. And a lot of guests later and a ton of episodes. I think I'm at 110 episodes. I'm not real sure on that, but it's right around that. It might be a little more. And this space, you and I have had an agreement, a trade deal, and I've been ever so thankful
because partnerships.
Yes. And early on, the budget was zero, so it was good to have that connection. But this is such a focal point in Norfolk. It's a great connection. It takes them right downtown where they can explore here and they can go to visit Norfolk area, Nebraska. They can find out more about the area real easily. It's a great place to host guests.
Yes.
And so I found you because I think I spoke about a at-home. You and I spoke here.
Yeah. It was we did like a
clinic or something.
Like a work from home, remote work, all the jargony, but really important things. Trust me, I love remote work. I will never work in a regular office. Again, I worked remote for 6 years, and now this job is also very flexible. So I feel that to my core, but it is what I like to think back about is just that partnership, because you bring guests in, and that's the best part. Why would I say no to people coming in the door? We love that. So,
and you get advertising.
We do.
Because that's part of the trade deal. And so as the listenership has grown, as that audience has grown, you've grown along with it. And there's things to say yes to early on. You taking a chance was a little bit of a leap, but now look. So
it's definitely a great jump, but it's something we also really focus on, and as a initiative, as a project in our core. But for me personally too, is especially as you're working with founders and people who are starting a business, they don't have cash flow. So the fact that I work for a nonprofit and I get to help people who don't maybe have the same resources is so important. It's getting those people in the door, and it's so fun now. We have a great crowd here, or let alone just the people who use the space for the office capabilities, but our 1 million cups and the conversations of the community around it it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
We talk a little bit about 1MC, and earlier today you were talking about going to Grand Island. What's it like, expanding the ecosystem and being plugged into some of those connection points that maybe wouldn't have happened without stopping in one day and seeing the space?
I can't imagine loving what I do any more than what I do. I wake up every day excited, And every Monday, people are like, oh, I hate Mondays. Oh, I love Mondays because I have that whole week ahead of me. And I don't know. I mean, I do know because everything's scheduled out. But sometimes in Grand Island, I was in Shickley, Nebraska the other day, in Hebron. I was in Pender. And I get to go all across the state hearing these great stories, sharing the stories. And it's the people that I interview that are telling those stories. But it's really fun. And like you said, you like to hear about the boutiques or the things that I shout out. That's another element of it. So, 2 times a month, I'm doing Sheila Shout Outs. Maybe I went to a park somewhere that I loved, or a library, or I did some Frisbee golf somewhere, whatever, thrift shops, coffee shops, always on the coffee shops and bookstores.
Every time. Oh,
yeah.
That's a whole episode.
Yeah. I was thinking I should take all my little segments and put them into one coffee directory. Anyway, that's a project for another day.
There you go.
But all of those things. And then there's the ones that are the tourism ones. Like I'm going to Grand Island for a whole week, and part of that's through a tourism package. Part of it's through Midwest Travel Network, and that's a connection I made through the podcast that's invaluable. Things like that. Once a month I do Growing Nebraska and Beyond.
Yeah, there you go.
So I just came back from Shipshewana, Indiana, where I got to explore there.
What a name. But
Yeah, yes. Do you wanna? Shipshewana, that's what they say. So it's those
amazing.
connections, but it's all adds value. But working with the tourism entities is great. Working with the small business owners, those are free to them, those shout outs. That's fantastic. Every element adds something new and exciting. And I get to meet so many great people. I think that's my favorite part.
I love that. I think about when we first started at the space, we did radio ads. And at first I was like, my audience isn't listening to the radio. I don't listen to the radio. I listen to Spotify or other, just I'm not listening to live radio. And then I had kind of just an aha moment of, I might not listen to the radio, but in my network or my audience might not. But maybe it's their parents or influencers in their life who are listening to it. And it's come to fruition. We've had people who come in, they're visiting from back home from on a holiday or something. And they're like, yeah, my mom told me about this. She heard it on the radio. And I'm like, well, that money just paid for itself because you're here for a week. It's crazy when you think about talking to the small businesses or doing those shout outs where it's something, maybe it's just, parallel to your network or who you're reaching out to, but there's so much value in that.
Well, and the awesome thing about, since I've done both radio and podcasting, the awesome thing about the podcasts are it's always there. Same with the ads that are on it. So,
Love
you go back and what happens is people will tune into one. Let's say they're like, oh, Emma, I want to listen to this. So they listen to that episode. Most of the time they're going back and they listen to all the episodes, just like you would do with your favorite podcasts.
100%.
Yeah.
Once I figured out I could just tell Spotify which way to go, because I was like, I want to go up the list. I don't want to go down the list. Yeah. But I do 100% the same. When I start a new one, I'm binging.
If a person likes it, they like it, and they're going to listen to the whole thing. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, we talk about the community and the energy around it. Can you talk to me a little bit about the energy of being around builders, in the space and here, and some of how that's shown up in the podcast work, and then just as you communicate with people in the space too?
About here at Intersect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great connection. 1MC, 1 Million Cups has been a community for me. I don't get there as often as I did, clearly, but when I can, I'm here. And those connections are all kind of, it's interesting how it intertwines. So I was just a keynote speaker at a conference in Alliance, and we had three intersect, one, and then Libby from the Elk River Valley Museum. I mean, Northeast Nebraska was there, and a lot of those connections are right here. And I love the community here. I like working here. You let me come and work in here off whenever I want to, basically. And Hunter and I are both these people because I work for a while and then I'm wandering out so I can talk to somebody, and so is Hunter. So it works out, or I'll come talk to you. And I really like that. Or if I need to get something done, seriously done, because when I'm not on the road, I have all this production work to do, or these emails after email after email after email. And if I really need to get things done, or if I'm going to build up a speech for an event, I come here.
Yeah.
Because I'm more focused. I'm not walking by my dishwasher thinking, oh, I should unload that. Oh, I should do a load of laundry, or the phone's ringing off the hook. This is where I come for that.
Oh, for sure. Like when I'm open to doing laundry instead of my to-do list at work, that's when we have problems.
Right.
But it's true. We talked about this, that we have, the water cooler, that remote work and digital technology, all of those things are amazing. It's expanding the resources and what people can do from wherever, but there's still nothing that replaces that water cooler chat.
Yeah.
Right. And bouncing ideas off each other. And it really does help. And then for me, it's the accountability. I got to put my headphones in and I get some work done.
You got to look like you're working.
You do.
Mm-hmm. It's like when I go to work out. It's much better if I go to the workout facility. Otherwise, right? I'm like, oh, I'm just going to do part of them.
Exactly. And it is. It's just that, you have that group aspect to it. But at the same time, you can plug your headphones in and get to work and get things done. So.
You can. And I will say that if people are thinking about coming to Intersect or another co-working space like this, people do know when to give you your space. Mm-hmm. They do know when to leave you alone. They understand you are here to get work done. So you do have both. But yeah.
I think it's something, even from, rural to more urban cities, of how, have you worked in like a co-working space in Lincoln or Omaha or anything?
Mm-mm, no.
So it's different. So that's not true. Oftentimes you don't have as much conversation, or if it is, it's much more like direct. It's not just as open freely. So I think that's something really lucky we have here of like, people will talk, but they're also very respectful. They're not just going to come over and chat with you.
Because that wouldn't work either.
Right. It's mostly like you're looking around and you're like, I'm going to go get a water.
Yeah, that's what I do. If I hear somebody wandering around out there, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get some water and see if I can talk to somebody.
Exactly. I love it. I'm going to talk then a little bit more about some of the stories you've told. What have you learned from some of those folks? Like, is there anything that really sticks out to you? Is there a theme you've seen across some of these communities?
Yeah. Actually, I'm teaching a business class coming up in Columbus.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah. And it's about collaboration and teamwork, because the running theme that I am seeing in these communities that are thriving and growing and building is collaboration. And so that is the biggest thing I'm taking away from this, is that. And be each other's cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. It's okay. You're not really in competition, Right. The better your neighbor does, the better you're going to do. So don't be afraid to do some collaborative events. I mean, I'm on a lot of podcast episodes now. I've hosted a lot of podcast hosts. Mm-hmm. We're not enemies.
No, it is.
Yeah. What's good for me is what's good for you in this situation. And so, that's probably one of the biggest things,
love it.
Is that. And
I love that. Yeah. And we see that when we talk with founders too. You have, again, a lot of times strapped with resources, but having those partnerships, and you can't do it all by yourself. There are some solo founders out there and they are made for it, and that's great for them, but a lot of people aren't. So having those partnerships is huge. Yeah.
So talking about partnerships, one of the biggest things that's happened this year for me that's been such a plus is partnering with the Nebraska Community Foundation. Mm-hmm. And they were bringing that's how I'm up to 7. There's 2 more episodes a month that are brought to the listeners through them, and it's those stories of revitalization. But once I interviewed them for a podcast episode and they invited me on this bus tour, it was very clear that we were aligned. Mm-hmm. And so when you find those things, that's a connection that is it's valuable to them, and it's valuable to me. It's valuable to the content, to the listeners. It's just a win-win-win-win-win.
Love it. Yeah. If you had one tip for somebody who wants to start their own podcast, or even just a business in general, like starting a podcast is a good point for you, but what would that advice be?
Do it. Don't think you have to have every single thing in place for your whole year. Get it going. Yeah. If it's a podcast, sure, maybe try to bank your first 3 because you're slower when you start. Now sometimes because of my schedule, it's a quick turnaround, and I'll have one done, turned around in a couple of days. I don't prefer that. For anybody who's listening, schedule-wise, listen, I like a couple weeks. Love it. But just do this. If it fails, it fails.
Right.
If it grows, it grows. You really don't know, and that's in any business, until you start. You do have to give it some time.
Yes.
Podcasting is the same as a business. There's a statistic out there that 1 in 3 podcasts, I think it was, only makes it past 3 episodes or to 3 episodes. Well, give it a little time,
right,
and perseverance, and understand it's work. It's work. Nothing in this life is free.
For sure. It really is.
Yeah.
I love that. So what's the vision? What's next for you? What's next with the podcast? What you got going on?
Yeah, same kind of thing. 7 episodes a month, maybe 8, maybe 9, getting out there, meeting great people. I have more public speaking, telling the stories. That's the neat thing I get to do now is public speaking gigs. I'm part of the Midwest Travel Network Speakers Bureau, and I get to share, and I use the clips for the podcast.
Right.
So I'm taking you guys everywhere I go so often in these adventures. But as far as the podcast, just more episodes. We're growing tremendously. I want to thank the listeners and the followers for all the support and all the sponsors. It's been amazing. I don't have time to grow much more as far as episodes. So
I was to say, up to 9, man,
just
you
gonna keep doing it.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, as we round out today's convo, we've started asking like these rapid fire questions. So
okay, bring it.
it's easy. They should be kind
Is it a game show? Do I win a prize?
I know.
Is there like
we should
$1
have
million somewhere?
If you find it, we can share it.
Okay. Yeah, we won't even tell anybody.
There we go.
Okay.
Who is one of your dream guests for your podcast?
Oh, I can't really answer that. Sorry. The reason is every time I record one, I think it's the best podcast ever.
Also fair.
So, yeah.
Also fair.
Every single one gets, yeah.
I love that. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I love it. What is the best interview tip you've learned from your podcasting and or radio experience?
Listen to what they're saying, respond to what they're saying. Don't just be focused on your next question. Take it in and build your conversation more around what they're saying than what you thought you were going to say.
I feel like that applies to so much more than just podcasting.
Yeah, and now I know when people aren't listening to me, by the way, because I've done this now so long. I'll say to my husband, "You're not listening to me," because I can tell.
I feel like I've run enough meetings where I can tell I'm like, that's not the question I asked. So it makes sense that it would be the same in an interview. I love it. Okay. What is your go-to coffee or caffeine for creative fuel?
Always coffee. Sometimes it's a chai, dirty chai that still has coffee. 100%. So there you go. It's a sugar-free with almond milk. Not near as much fun because I'm older and that's just my life right now. But yes, I love coffee so much.
When I figured out dirty chai was espresso and chai, I was like,
that's my afternoon.
Why? It makes me feel the same. I'm like, this is an afternoon drink.
Yes.
Okay. And we kind of talked about it, but outside of just doing it, any advice you would give to someone who's listening today?
Yeah. Have a little confidence in yourself.
I love that.
And don't be so hard on yourself. And if one person says one little negative thing, that's okay. You got 8 or 9 that are saying positive things about you. So take in the positive. You can take in the negative too, and then you just table that and understand that maybe they were having a day, whatever. But just go forward with positivity. Be nice, and people be nice back to you.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Sheila. You are the perfect guest for our podcast because you're doing exactly what we believe in. You're telling stories that matter. You're building those connections, and you're showing that big things happen in small places. So we want to highlight builders like you and give our in-person community those digital wings. Whether it's launching a business or starting a podcast, we want people to know that they don't have to go it alone. There's a space, a network, and a whole community here to support them. Again, thank you, Sheila, for joining me today. Your story is such a powerful reminder of all the connections and partnerships that are out there, and what about special about slowing down, tuning in, and listening to stories that shape our community.
Thank you for having me. You keep up the great work.
Thanks. And for everybody listening, subscribe to Build in Norfolk. While you're at it, go check out Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast for more stories just like this.